Hey everybody, welcome to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are the official podcast of StarWarsNewsNet.com. With me as always is James Bainey and Lacey Gillerin. Small talk, little banter, cold opens. That's usually the fun deal on this show. Get things warmed up, get the engines going. But we got a problem, big problem. Like Han said to Enfys Nest. Big problem. People are beating the bejesus out of Baby Yoda. And it's not good, guys. It's not good. So our friend Jen Marie at Across the Stars, she's one of the longest running Star Wars bloggers. She was on the Mando Fan Show with us, good friend of ours, absolute awesome Star Wars fan, nice person. Said she wanted to hear our thoughts on this whole deal about the new Bop It Baby Yoda, whether it should exist and whether or not it sends a bad message. And, I think, Lacey, you had tweeted about it. A lot of people are like talking about this thing. Some people are like really, really upset about this thing. And
because it's really ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I got the
what's your overall take on this thing?
Yeah, so I got the alert from Hasbro because I get the alerts when they announce new toys. And I get this alert being like, Lacey, here are the newest toys that we're announcing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, and I usually click through and they're usually Black Series. So they had the Empire Strikes Back, Carbonite scene set, and all these cool things. And I'm clicking through and then I see a little Baby Yoda and I'm like, oh, what's that? And then I click to the next image and it's the Bop It box. And it's like, Bop It, Baby Yoda. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. So, Bop It is definitely, a 90s, early 2000s toy.
Right.
So, you bop it, you twist it, you pull it.
Right.
My response is, okay, you hit it on the head, you twist its head, and you pull its feet. That has to be what it is, because that's what the Bop It is.
Or twist his arm. Yeah.
It has to be, yes.
Or if it's pull his ear.
No, I think it's the whole head. Because that's how the Bop It is built. It's like you pull the feet. You twist the head, you bop the head.
I love how Baby Yoda behind you is looking like, uh-oh, is that happening?
Dad, you just zoom in on his head.
So this became a big deal. People are really upset about it.
I was very,
This is the first time hearing of it.
That's amazing. That's what I love about this.
I was in shock that this was a toy because, first of all, it is a little funny because you're like, this is so ridiculous, it's comical.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, what? I pulled Madden and showed him, and he was like, some kid's gonna do that to their little brother, and then that's gonna be the end of this toy, that they're bopping people on the head. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It was very weird, especially because of the reaction people had from that punching episode of Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
I don't know who came up with this toy, but there's a little bit of what?
I'm actually more mad at these stupid clickbait websites where it's like a slideshow right now, and it's like, a new toy makes users punch Baby Yoda to win. Slide. I have to go to the next page. And then it's like, it's a version of the classic toy, Bop It, but features Baby Yoda. I have to go to the next page.
That ad revenue. James, is it a website that says 17 reasons why you shouldn't buy Bop It, and it's all a slide for each reason?
Yep. Getting those.
I'm not going to lie, it's someone people would know.
Right,
so I'm not going to say their name. I don't want to call anybody out right now. But yeah.
So I think it's kind of ridiculous. I think it's one of those things where people are pretending to be upset about it because it's funny. I don't think anyone's actually really upset about it. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but
it's a little weird.
I'll be honest. People are going to take the one behind you, that Baby Yoda, and they're going to cosplay with it at a future celebration and beat that thing up. So, I mean, it's just...
Wait, that one or the other one? Because now I have two.
The realistic looking one in the back, which I'm still waiting for mine. It's on the way, I guess. But it's very interesting. Yeah. So if you hit it, Lacey, right now, let's really set the world on fire. Punch that thing in the top of the head.
I am not doing that. No, absolutely not.
Okay. Well, trying to go for the ratings here. It's not working out. We won't isolate that clip. Be telling Lacey to beat Baby Yoda in the head.
I'm curious if there's been other novelty Bop Its like that. I know there's been other versions of the series of game, but I was curious if here's an R2-D2 Bop It.
I was never good at the Bop Its.
I wonder if there was ever an original Yoda Bop It.
Chewbacca Bop It. You guys can't see it.
See,
But
that
you can.
That should not exist.
Okay, so my question is, does it, whatever it does to Chewie is what they do to Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
I guarantee it's you twist the head, you bop the head, and you pull the feet.
But you know what? People are going to be bopping all those things anyway because of that episode.
How many times have we said bop in this episode?
So it comes down to whose fault is it? Is it Jon Favreau's or Taika Waititi's fault? And then we could blame those two actors, Sudeikis
All I'm
and
thinking about is
Pally, whatever his name is.
Adam Pally talking about how John was like, just don't hit it so hard.
Yeah.
If you say Bop It backwards, it's Ty Pob, and that sounds like a Star Wars name. Here's an Olaf Bop It. I wouldn't mind hitting him.
Oh my god.
It's press the Bop It button to start on that one. I can't read the Chewbacca one, but I think it says something about the top of his head to start.
Well,
Bop
so it might be
twist
pressed
it.
down.
so what? I want to know what you guys out there think. Is it a big deal? Do you think this Baby Yoda Bop It is a problem? Or is this just one of those things where any product that ever exists in the history of the world for the sake of capitalism and commercialism and making that buck, they're going to make a Baby Yoda of? Like, maybe they'll make a microphone, a Baby Yoda microphone. Maybe they'll make Baby Yoda headphones, and they'll have the ears.
They already have Baby Yoda headphones with Baby Yoda on the side.
I'm thinking that they've already got these deals in play, and they have
Baby
in a
Yoda
while
mug.
because I proved it because they had the R2D2 and the Chewbacca one. So they just came up. There was a meeting, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna do the Bop It thing again. You guys have a character. Well, obviously Baby Yoda, so we'll do that. That's a popular character." And I don't think they're thinking of it as like punch a baby. I think they're just thinking of it as popular Star Wars character, cute, whatever.
Right.
So
R2,
punch the cute
Chewbacca,
character.
Baby Yoda. It's not punch the cute
Actually, it is
character.
technically called The Child. Does the packaging say The Child on it? Bop the Child?
It's called punch the child. No, I don't think it's a punch. I bet it's a. I bet
bop
it's a.
is different than a
head down
punch.
thing.
I feel like we're in court right now, like on trial for like abuse. I didn't punch him, okay? I bopped him. Bopped him on the head.
Doesn't matter
bopped him in
if
the
you bop
face.
or punch or whatever. You're still hitting something.
I bopped him out cold, man. He's just out.
I'm gonna bop you.
Ty Pop. That's his name, actually. Season 2, they're going to reveal that. His name is Ty Pop, James.
Oh yeah, there you go.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. It just says press the Bop It button on the front of R2D2 too. So, you might not even hit this thing. Oh, here's a BB-8 one too, guys. This is not
Have you
new.
ever played Bop It, James?
Yeah.
So it's not a gentle press. You're hitting this thing to try to go as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. It's not a gentle pat. Like you're
with the palm of your
hitting
hand.
it.
You're not punching it.
You're still
You're not punching
hitting
Bop It.
You're still hitting it. It's the message of hitting a child that people are like.
I think people are pretending to be upset just for it to be funny.
It's not.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not upset about it either. It's a toy. Who cares? I'm just saying it's a little bit bad taste. That's all I'm saying.
What about the Chewy one? You're okay with that?
I didn't know a Chewy one existed until just now. I would have said the same thing about Chewy.
What if there was like a Padme one?
I don't know. Aren't there resistance reports we need to?
What if there was a tally one and it said bops away?
See, but then I'd be okay with it.
Then Lacey would buy 7 of them. Yeah. All right. Now, let's get into some of the news stories going on. Star Wars is lighting up the headlines in news, so we're going to talk about all of it right now in the Resistance Report, and Mr. James Bainey is going to be our tour guide today.
It's the Resistance.
Yes. Now, this is weird, right? Because we just did a Will of the Force like last week that talked about this pretty specifically. The question was like, will Oscar Isaac return? Because he seems like kind of so-so about returning to Star Wars right now. And then sure enough, the next week we get this thing from Deadline here. So he was doing this interview, and it was mostly about all of the other the movies that he's currently working on, but kind of just him as an actor. And he was asked the question about, how is it different working on these films than it is to say work on like the big budget Star Wars that you recently got off of. And he said it's just a different world, and I was born to play the smaller roles. That's really what I want to do. That's what I love about film. So then Deadline followed up with, does that reduce the chances of a return for Poe Dameron one day? And his exact quote answer is, probably, but who knows if I need another house or something. And that ended the discussion about it. So I'm gonna start off with Lacey on this one. What do you think about his statement here, and do you think it in fact means that he's just donezo with Star Wars?
So this statement and another statement from the interview stood out to me. I believe it's the same interview where he's talking about Dune, right? And working on Dune and saying how they have to go do reshoots. And he said the only movie I've ever really done reshoots for was Star Wars. And it was kind of this subtle jab of oh, well, production-wise, the only productions that seem to have me redoing things is Dune and Star Wars. So, we talked about this a little bit last week, but I get from these answers that he's done with Star Wars for now, and he'd come back, like we said, if he got a big fat paycheck, but he's not interested in the sense of oh, Star Wars is my life and it's my destiny to play this role again. I think, as with anybody, if you look at an Adam Driver, it's a job to him. Obviously it's his life's passion, but it's also a job. So he would rather be doing other things, but he's willing to do Star Wars again if he needs a house, if he wants that big paycheck, which who's going to turn down a Disney paycheck? Because they're big. But I don't know. I just get this sense that he's just not interested. And from the press tour, the way he talked about it and was kind of just I'm over this. I don't see him coming back. I really don't. That's.
John, what do you think? You think he's coming back?
Yeah, he'll come back. Kind of like how I guessed last week, and I'm going to stick to that. He'll come back and get killed off in the first one.
That was a good idea. I did like that idea.
Just so it's not, oh, where'd Poe go? We're all still here, but he's gone because he doesn't want to do this anymore. So I think he'll come back and get killed off and that sort of thing. But, he comes across as the artiste actor, almost that he's above the action blockbuster stuff. Which is not the Oscar Isaac we heard in 2014, 2015, who's I was a diehard Star Wars fan. He's I'm you can't kill off my character. I was so excited to tell my dad about it or whoever he was bragging to about it.
Doesn't it make you wonder what happened?
I honestly think it's just maybe burnout. It's a lot of scrutiny. It's a lot of those things that come with it. And look at, Harrison Ford. It was one of his first major gigs. And then after 3, he's I am so done with this stuff. So I think it just comes. It's comes with the territory of it. And some people stick to it and make it their identity, like a Mark Hamill. And some people take the Harrison Ford route, which is I'm going to go now do other things and use this as my springboard. Not to say Oscar Isaac wasn't established already, but everything he's saying here is I love the small movies. I was meant to do these art pictures, these indie flicks. Where we'll do a shoot in a span of 3 weeks that I feel like it takes 6 months to do on a big thing. There's no such thing as reshoots on these indie movies. So him saying, I had to do reshoots on these other movies, it's there's no budget for that. They just make these movies. And they film for 3 weeks in a coffee shop in black and white probably. And it gets nominated for awards. And he loves that sort of thing. And that's cool, man. But the only thing I don't like is... you don't really if I need another house, that's kind of a douche comment, honestly. I just don't like that. And why can't he just say well, I dedicated 5 years of my life to that franchise and I loved it and it was a lot of fun but now I want to go back to my roots. I don't know. It was kind of off-putting to hear, to be honest with you. And then when we go back to, and this isn't a roast Oscar Isaac thing, but remember when we did the one-offs to Eunice Huthart, And all she said about she was so glowing about everybody, but Oscar Isaac, she was like, pretty good actor. That's about it. Like, I get this feeling that he may have had this sort of like, I'm the artiste attitude on set where everyone else is maybe more energetic, and that's just me speculating, of course, which is probably what I shouldn't be doing.
Maybe he didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think he'll come back. But I think it'll be a quick thing and a way to respect everything that they've built to not ruin the continuity of it, and then he'll get out of there. But I think he'll be back. As long as John Boyega and Daisy Ridley come back, he'll probably pop back in for a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with the comment about the house thing. That always seems weird. And I don't like it too when it seemed in a weird way like it was gloating about how much money he made from
especially
it,
in this climate. People are like really having a rough time. Everyone's losing their jobs.
Yeah. But I know also too it was like another joke. He's not. I don't know that he was actually saying he had enough money to buy a house. I think that's just kind of a common phrase of like what people say when it's like if I need more money to buy something that I don't need, you know.
Of course, yeah.
But I do agree that I think he's burnt out. I like that aspect of it because I do remember I was really excited about him being in the movie because of his ability to act and how excited he was about being in Star Wars, and I was glad that they didn't kill off his character, and I thought it was a smart move to make him one of the big three in the movie and all that. But I can definitely say that, like, this might be out of left field, but like when I was in the band and stuff, we definitely toured with people who loved the big shows. Yeah, more people the better. Big lights, big crowds, love it. And then in turn, I would tour with people where they would say like, oh, I hate those shows. Those are the worst shows. You're 30 feet away from the crowd. It just looks like a blanket, empty, dark mass. There's no intimacy. The shows suck. They're always bad. You can't hear anything. It's like, I understand that there are people that just enjoy the run and gun aspect of a film like that. He said they shot the movie and the one that he's working on in 3 weeks, and other movies it took like 6 months. So
it is interesting though.
Yeah, I don't know.
At the beginning of the production process for The Rise of Skywalker, when he would get interviewed about it, he was like, it's great that JJ's back. It feels like we're all here. We can improv. It's so, it's not as rigid, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just interesting to hear that interview and then what we witnessed on the press tour and then what we're hearing now. It's like, what happened, man? Like,
well, the end of the press tour too, we commented on the would you do Disney Plus or would you come back? It was just like, no.
I'm out.
Well,
it's like,
also it's like,
of course it was. I think it was John Boyega who
it's
said no to
just
Disney
tough
Plus,
when you
right?
hear that from people that you're like, man, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but it just feels like they're given this opportunity to be in a Star Wars movie, and you see them giving interviews of like, man, this sucks. I would never do this again, or oh, I would never do that, and you're just like, I would kill to be in a Star Wars movie or a TV show or anything.
Yeah.
And I appreciate honesty like more than anything, but I feel like sometimes, like John said, it just comes across a little, it just rubs me the wrong way that it's just like, I feel like you're taking this for granted.
Also, the environment that he's in that interview, it's, with the guy who's making the film he's doing with now, The Card Counter, which is Paul Schrader, who is very acclaimed artist, filmmaker who wrote like, Easy Riders and Raging Bull and all these classics. So, at least with me, sometimes when you're on a call with that person and they're asking you about Star Wars and you almost feel like you don't want to compromise you as the artist. So you almost make fun of, it's like when you go somewhere with like your little sibling, and you see the cool kids from high school and you like treat your like little sibling like crap.
Right. And I get that, but
Yeah.
I feel like if this was a one instance that I was like, oh, yes, that totally explains it. But it was multiple things that he said over the past 6 months about
I
Star
understand.
Wars and
Yeah,
being in Star Wars that
agree.
I'm like, again?
Yeah.
Like, even now, you think he'd be like, yeah, that was, you know what? Towards the end, it was a little rough, but I'm glad I did it. I don't know if I go back, but it is what it is. Like, that to me would have felt more, I don't know, less off-putting than being like, oh, like, get a house.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
Me too. I wish I could buy another house.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow, there's going to be an Adam Driver interview where he's like, maybe if I need another
And
house.
I would say,
No. This is what's gonna happen.
I
was gonna
would say
say
the same thing about Adam Driver. I want to make this clear because a lot of people say this all the time. Oh, if Adam Driver did this, I don't care who it is. Whoever says something like that is going to get the same answer from me. If Daisy said it, John said it, I don't care.
There's gonna be an article that says Adam Driver and wife buy new house, and people are gonna be like, Adam Driver's coming back to Star Wars. He just bought a new house, guys.
Yeah.
But I do see that a lot. They're like, oh, well, what if it was Adam Driver? And I'm like, I'd still react the same. Doesn't matter who
That
it is.
Adam Driver, though.
I feel like he's done, if we're being serious. Like, he's never come back.
You know what's another aspect of this too, like sometimes when you're working in these environments, like it's Oscar Isaac, it's Daisy Ridley, it's John Boyega, right? But also at the same time, I think that like in some of the circles with the people they're dealing with, like Daisy Ridley is not Kathleen Kennedy. She's not J.J. Abrams. She's not, all these other producers and people who have been in the industry for years and, and stuff. And Oscar and John are probably in the same kind of situation. While as prestigious they are still kind of like, hold on. You're not making Star Wars. You're allowed to be in Star Wars. We're letting you be in Star Wars kind of thing. And that could also be a tear on it. All this work, 6 months of shooting, coming back to do reshoots and all that other stuff. But then on top of it, just the vibe of like who you are. And then you go off of Star Wars and you do some of these indie movies and they're like, Oscar, we're so blessed you joined us on this movie. You're a gift from the gods. We love you. Like this is all the money we have. It's $20.
You don't need to dye your hair black
and
for
he's
this
like,
one,
I'll
man.
take it.
Let those grays
It's
flow.
like when you go home to see your parents, everything
Yeah.
you've done is amazing. And you're like,
You're right though in terms of like even Boyega, like, and I love him and I root for him in Star Wars when people were giving him crap, But even his comment about that you're not going to Disney Plus me, and then you have Ewan McGregor, who has a way more successful career than John Boyega may
He was
ever
like,
have,
"Give me all
saying
the
like,
Disney Plus."
I am so pumped to come back. We're doing it on the Disney Plus, and that means we get more time, and I get to come back as Kenobi. Let's call it hello there. Like, I think this new generation, mainly Oscar and Boyega, need to like maybe dial the ego back a little
Ridley
bit.
Ridley too. She said she was
Listen,
done with Star Wars.
I was just about to.
and They asked her if she was coming back too, and she's
My
like,
next point,
"No,
though,
I
Daisy
think I'm
has
done."
not made any snide comments, though, or anything that made her feel
stayed
like she was
in the
above
dark.
it. She has
true.
kind of said, like, I think the story feels finished, that sort of thing. I think we're done.
Yeah.
There was one interview I saw her before the movie came out, and they're like, are we ever going to see Rey again? And she said, well, if the galaxy needs a Jedi, and she, like, winked. Like, I think Daisy may be under some kind of contract where she's coming back at some point. I think they're really building around her, and you haven't heard much of her talking about Star Wars where you hear these other two do it. Driver's one thing. He was cashed out a while ago. but
That's true. She could be booked for like
I'm-
6
that's what I-
films.
that-
She could have
hey,
signed a
look.
6-film deal.
It would make a lot of sense. Rey's a very popular character with a lot of people. A lot of young girls are going to be coming up. They're going to have a lot of voices in the fandom. I think Disney knows not to let her go, and I don't know. I think she's without a doubt maybe already locked down. I know we're doing a lot of speculating here, but it's part of the fun, especially when
Yeah.
news isn't piping hot.
So this is like a will of the force. Like, will Daisy Ridley return?
I hope she does. I really, really like her.
Gotta sell those gold lightsabers, baby.
I'm still waiting for mine, Hasbro.
Yeah, come on, bro.
Come on, Hasbro.
Is it a product that you can buy?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, you're just saying you're
Waiting
waiting
for
for
it.
them to make it. I thought, knowing Lacey, it went on sale, and she jumped on some group chat where they bombed the website in order to get their.
I feel personally attacked.
Anyway,
6 of them, 5 of them going to Lacey's house.
I forgot that I ordered.
She's like,
them all.
"Hey, me and my 90 friends are offended." Like,
if people have been pointing me to like some like off-brand saber company, and I've done my research.
Saber Force?
I'm not going to say who it is because I've done my research and they have a bad reputation. But that being said,
John's lightsabers?
Yes. I would rather buy from Disney and Hasbro because that's like the official one. So I'm hoping they make it. I really wish we got to see that more of that saber in the movie. That's my one.
Well,
my
let's
one
be
wish.
honest. Rey at this point is the light of the Jedi, and she is the future of the franchise.
Did you have to put
Oh
that
my
in there?
gosh.
You couldn't just say like.
yeah. I think it's Saber Forge too. I was like, Saber
It's not.
Force?
It's not them.
Hey, unless they're going to sponsor us, we're not saying their names.
That's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just kiddle.
Sapre.
Unless I get another house, I'm
all right.
not
Right,
mentioning anyone.
unless I need another
Yeah.
lightsaber, I'm not coming back to it.
All right. Well, do you guys want to talk a little bit about the High Republic? John was alluding to the High Republic being the light of the Jedi.
Oh.
And that is in fact what we got.
You did not get the segue at all?
No.
Absolute
She was like, "Did you have to say that?"
absolute home run 2-0 pitch over the center of the plate. By the way, baseball's coming back. The Yankees are coming back, so I'm very
How
excited
pumped
about
are you?
that. Oh, I'm so excited.
1-30.
I wonder how
all
Ryan's
right.
doing now that baseball's back.
I don't know, but he's all about Vader coming back. He commented on our episode. Very excited about that potential. All right.
Ryan, let us go to a baseball game.
So IGN got an exclusive. Reveal of the first chapter. They got to put it up, and there was like an interview with Charles Soule, and he talked a little bit about the book, and then they delivered the first chapter for you. Interesting, right? Interesting. This is the setup. John, you want to take us into what you think of this chapter?
Yes.
Did you read it?
I could tell by his faces when you ask him a question what his answer is going to be.
Well, I don't like being negative, right? I like to give my honest take, though.
That's what you get on YouTube. You get John's faces.
So Charles Soule is definitely a good writer in terms of painting pictures in your head and understanding where people are and how they're seated and how they're moving and maybe what they're going through. I think he's great at that. So I think that's a supreme talent of his. But when I read this thing, it felt like a lot of the criticisms, James, that you gave to the DJ Older Last Shot stuff in terms of referentials to species that may be lumped together in certain aspects of Star Wars, Hutt armadas. The thing that like made me kind of cock my head a little bit was the family of Bith right next to an Ortalin, which is the species of the Cantina Band, right next to a species of Max Rebo. So I'm like, oh, so all the musician species from the history of Star Wars are on this ship together hanging out. And then the other thing that bothered me a little bit was I'm like, man, Charles Soule's really just going for the old Han Solo vibe, talking to his ship sort of thing. Like, you can do it, old gal. Like, we've been through a lot together, and we'll get through this together and hold together. And I don't know. I didn't really register with this. I think the best part to me was the part with the kids. But even though that, it was like a kid asking someone if they could watch the iPad and like, can you download more shows on Netflix for me? Like, it just I didn't feel like I was really reading Star Wars. But the ending kind of, it gives you that hook, and it's smart of them to do that where you're like, oh wow, there's this, the ship just gets all out of whack, and now this lead person dies, and we don't know where we're left at this point, so it makes you want more, and I get that. Didn't love it though, I'll be honest. There's a lot, I was left unimpressed, to be honest with you, about this. And I know it's just one chapter in a book of, a lot of stories we're going to be getting into here. But boy, I just, they don't have me yet. That's all I'll say. And I know a lot of people love Charles Soule, especially with the Kylo Ren stuff. I wasn't that huge of a fan of that. I think his Vader stuff is really good. But this so far did not do it for me.
What do you
James,
think,
I want
Lacey?
you to go next.
Parts of it I liked, parts of it I didn't. I just got off of, well, we're going to talk about Alphabet Squadron here in a second, but it's a tough read. Alphabet Squadron is. And so coming into this, I felt like I was just blazing through it, even though there were details about ships and there were numbers and different species and stuff. And I was like, it was very easy to picture what was going on.
Yeah, that's for
sure. Like you said, follow the character kind of through the thing. And I was like, okay, I'm in this. I liked that. I liked that I got the idea that this was going to be the first time that we haven't really gotten a war, Star Wars, because we're so used to General Mace Windu and General or Admiral Akbar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all these military
Right.
situations and characters and ranks and other things like that. And when reading this, I was like, man, this is right. This is just people being frontiersmen, and just going out into the wild and seeing what's out there and fighting what's out there and stuff like that. And it's not really so much like a colonel and a captain and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, well that's cool. And I really like that. That definitely branches away from what I'm familiar with Star Wars, even if there's like a couple of books that aren't exactly like that. I mean, like even Thrawn like comes from that world and then moved back into that world, there's no escaping that military. The one thing that I was having a hard time with was the fact that this is the great disaster. This is the thing that offsets all of this stuff. And in a weird way, like, and I don't know, 9,000 souls is a lot. That's a lot of people. But like in a galaxy of
It's not
I don't know, it just
Alderaan
seems
blowing
like yeah. And even then, Alderaan wasn't... It felt like it was like, hey, did you hear about Alderaan? That sucks. It wasn't like a galactic, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, it wasn't World War I. Like, I don't know. It seemed a little strange. And I couldn't wrap my head around how... I don't know, she's piloting in hyperspace.
Right.
Like, oh, I can see it. It's in front. Better dodge it. I'm like, do we not understand speed of light? Do we not?
They also were like, it's going to hit us
here?
in 10 seconds. And then there were like 7 paragraphs.
Yeah. And I don't know, just something about like they dodged it. And I'm like, they dodged it? And then just
That
the
was the
pressure
camel that broke
caused the ship
ship's
to
back.
blow up. It was weird. I was kind of like, I would just rather they have said, this makes no sense, but there's nothing we can do now. Boom, head on into it. And just be like, what happened? Who got fired that day? For miscalculating or who purposefully put this thing in a hyperspace lane or something. And I'm sure it'll probably all branch off of that, but I just thought it was weird that part of it was dodging the obstacle and then still dying. I don't know. I thought that was weird. But all right, Lacey, what do you think? Still excited for it.
Yeah, I
That's
have
it.
to see where the book goes because this chapter obviously doesn't set up our main characters. It's just like setting the premise of what the story is, which reading it felt very...
This is actually the end of the book too. That was the main
I kind
character.
of felt like I was watching like a movie in the sense of like a disaster movie where in the first 10 minutes some person that you don't care about dies, but it sets off the course of where your main character is going to go and you're like, okay. I didn't like connect with this captain that we're learning about in the first chapter, and I'm like, okay, cares about her ship, blah blah blah. Okay, she's dead. And I'm like, well, that sucks. But like I didn't get that payoff of, oh, this is really, really terrible. Because again, it just, there was a lot of stuff being thrown at me that I was very confused about. Like you said, James, like how are they maneuvering the ships and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had your eyes closed. I was like, did you fall asleep during my explanation of this book?
Me?
Yeah.
I was looking
Like
down.
you were sleeping, and I was.
Does it look like I'm asleep?
And I
Just
was
tilt
like,
your
I mean,
head slightly, James.
I mean,
while you're looking down.
I get that.
He's out.
Not doing
No.
a good job, but no. Yeah, it wasn't that interesting to me. I kind of, like you said, James, or I forget who said it, but like it's not about a war, so there's no fighting. It's just like, oh, this ship blew up, and you're like, okay, but like, where's the war part in Star Wars?
It has this whole like, she's been through so much and her bone aches when she stands up, and it's like, okay, so we get it. This person's been through a lot, and she's probably not in her prime anymore, just like her ship, and I get that whole like relationship sort of thing. But people are going to be like, well, it's setting it up, and we're going to see where this goes, and who knows what happens to all those people, and do some of them get out and whatever, and I get that, but we just have to respond to this in a bubble, which is this chapter, and what does this chapter do for you? And so I understand that there's probably going to be more meaning given to this chapter once we understand where this is going and that sort of thing.
I don't know who selects these chapters, because I feel like the Thrawn chapter too, I was like,
well, is this
Nice.
was this the first chapter of the book, or
it's chapter 1.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just don't know. I don't know. Like, when I read it, I did not feel like I was reading Star Wars. And, sometimes these books to me read like fan fiction. It's almost like people trying to think, what would Star Wars sound like? Or what would it read like? And that's what I got with the whole, like, her talking to the ship, and the ship is a female, and she's saying, like, hang together, you can do it. I'm like, that's Han Solo telling the Millennium Falcon to not burst into pieces. I'm like, I don't know. It something about it misfires with me, and
It didn't hook me, I'll say
Yeah.
that. Like, I didn't read it going like, oh my gosh, I need to read more.
yeah. I know people are gonna be bummed that I said that, but I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I have no doubt that I'm gonna read more. I mean, I think I'm hooked enough that it would have to be like really bad for me to be like, this just.
I want to see what happens to all the people on the ship and
know?
the kids and that, because they're not. You think
they're
they're
dead.
all dead?
They're all dead.
I don't see anybody could speculate
They're
that
all
they
dead.
survived. That's the point of the great
the premise
disaster.
is that it breaks into pieces, and aren't the pieces flying at different rates in different places? That's the premise. And so the Jedi are responsible of like trying to like, what can we do to fix this problem?
What if one of those kids went looking for?
I know you could still tell the story of being like, oh, there were 9,000 on board.
Why would they
and,
introduce you to kids like that then?
10 lived.
Why would they introduce you
What?
to little kids like that then?
Because the situation needed gravity that the kids
I know,
need.
but still, like,
But that's the point, is that you're like, oh my gosh, those kids died.
Yeah.
I know, but just say that there were kids
that's
on
adding
board.
gravity
Don't
to the
have me meet
situation.
the kid and have him hold me the iPad and tell him to put on.
That
No,
makes it
no, it
better,
doesn't. No, it
John.
Yes,
doesn't.
it does, because
Horrible.
otherwise you have no connection.
Charles Soule has no soul.
Yeah, what are you talking about, John?
Terrible.
Anyway, he's crazy.
Oh gosh.
Here, meet this kid. He's really cute and stuff. Dead.
That's the point.
Why would this movie bother to show me the main character if they're just going to kill him?
They're not the main characters though.
Like, that's the point of the
Get outta
story. You want to get the emotional weight of understanding what that person's going through.
Speaking
Anyway.
of books,
Yeah. The very last thing that I was going to say about it is just, I think you're right, Lacey, to the point of like, it's like the light of the Jedi. This is about the Jedi, the future of the Jedi. Here's the first chapter. And you're like, yay. And it's like a bunch of people drove into a wall. And you're like, oh, it doesn't have anything to do
John
with the
asked
Jedi.
me what I thought. My first sentence was, hey, it's Star Wars. Everyone's dead. Like, that was my... I just, you wanted to... I'm excited to meet the main characters that are Jedi.
Why didn't
Like,
they
that's
introduce
what
us
I
to
want.
kids on Alderaan before they blew it up in Star Wars to give it emotional weight? I'm just curious.
John,
Because they would have done it. George would
John,
have
look
done
at
it.
every Disney movie. Parents die, kids die. There always has to be something that
This is
drives
Star
the
Wars, not
characters
Disney.
forward. It's Disney Star Wars.
Why couldn't the beginning of Up just told us that his wife died?
I'm giving you Star Wars examples. You're giving me Pixar stuff. Come on.
I was actually gonna say
We're giving you just examples of how stories work.
Oh, get out of here! That's such what a pretentious jerk comment. Unbelievable.
So, like, a good example would be Harry Potter. You have to learn that Harry's parents died to that then.
Fine, they're
sets the
grown-ups.
story.
Don't give me the little kid.
All right, John has an emotional issue
I
right
do.
now. Let's go ahead and talk about that Alphabet Squadron story. So Alphabet Squadron Shadow Fall, the second book of the trilogy, is out now. I've read it, and Kyle Larson read it. He also works for Star Wars Newsnet and wrote the review of the book for the site. We did a book discussion where we just kind of openly talked about the book, as well as a new thing that we're trying out where we just kind of said, hey, we figure you're probably not going to read this or don't have the time to read it or whatever. So we just kind of told you what happened. Spoilers ahead. And that was a fun experiment. I think people liked the video. I think we'll try it again when the next book comes out. But I wanted to see what you guys thought about Shadowfall.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't read this,
John?
so don't go to me.
You want me to go? So I haven't
Okay.
read the book. Didn't it come out 2 days ago?
No, like almost a week ago, 6 days
Okay.
ago.
I need like 6 months.
Yeah.
But I did watch your spoiler video, so I do recommend that to people. That gives you kind of like all the beats you need to know for the canon connectivity and that sort of thing. And there's definitely interesting stuff in this. I don't think I will read this because this isn't the type of Star Wars I'm into. I like more of the familial stuff and that sort of stuff, and not so much the squadron military tactics and
Same.
espionage
Right,
stuff.
right.
I like the stuff that Dave Filoni said it's about in the Disney Gallery. But anyway, I did like what you guys said about it. I find it interesting that you have like this mole in the system who, Herod, I guess are we saying spoilers here? Like, are we warning people that we're talking spoilers for Alphabet Squadron, I guess, at this point?
I wouldn't.
You don't want me
probably.
to you want me to just give you a general thoughts on the story?
I don't know. Book's out. I know what happens. You know what happens. But
No,
do
all right,
wanna
so we don't have to
spoil
spoil it. I'll just say this. I mean, I think it's... I think people who liked the first one will probably like this one. I think people who didn't like the first one probably won't like this one, and that will continue. I don't know how important it's going to be to the overall story of Star Wars, but it'll be a cool niche carved out in the between original trilogy and sequel trilogy era. If you like Harrison Dula, it's probably going to be right up your alley. I'm going to go along for the ride in terms of like understanding the story and absorbing the important beats, just in case there are things like some of the stuff that you and Kyle talked about in the video. I was like, wow, they went that way. That's pretty interesting. And how it ties to certain things that happened with Palpatine and that sort of stuff was cool to me. But I don't think I'm going to read it because of the stuffiness to it and that sort of thing. And you know what, James? I did not know, and maybe you had talked about this. He wrote the Rogue One novelization, which it's kind of interesting because it's a little similar in terms of the espionage angle. But where I went from this is talking about how it's been received so far. So the first one, Alphabet Squadron, had a 4.04 on Goodreads. I'm sorry, the first one had a 3.79 out of 5 on Goodreads. This one currently has a 4.04, even though it's still early. Not a lot of reviews on there yet. But I've been having a really hard time trying to find resources on book sales and how these books are doing. Hubs where there's like where's the Rotten Tomatoes or the IMDb for books. Like I can find out how many albums a band I like sold, but I have a hard time finding out how many copies of a book is sold. I'm curious to see that because that's definitely a good read and barometer on what type of stories they're going to be telling in Star Wars literature going forward. Like if the second Padme book tanked and didn't sell well, probably not going to get too many more stories about that. So I wish there was a way for us as fans to get an idea publicly on what is working and what isn't. so that we can know maybe what the direction of Star Wars storytelling in terms of literature is going. And also with the High Republic coming up, I'm going to be very curious on how that's received, because my theories on that I thought they were going to be connected to those movies by Benioff and Weiss. So that's where I'm at with this. If we're not going to get into the spoilery stuff on this.
Yeah. Anything, Lacey? What do you think?
I actually have no thoughts on this, and I don't mean to shortchange this topic, but I haven't read the book. I'm not into this kind of military stuff, so just not my cup of tea.
Well then I'll say, Alphabet Squadron, to me, I barely got through it. I read through it and I didn't really remember any of the story. It was just so hard. And I've, kind of, said that about Alexander Freed and his other books as well. But I knew that with this book coming up and it being part of a trilogy, that I was going to kind of, in a way, forcefully be handed these stories, so I might as well try to do my best to learn them. So I went back and I really studied up and tried to find out what is the story of Alphabet Squadron, how did it go down, who are the characters, what is it, and then I re-listened to the whole book a second time, and it helped so massively to understand the characters and stuff. Then going into Shadow Fall, while it's still a pretty heavy read, and I was glad that I had Kyle there to kind of walk me through it, and him as well. I definitely like this book better. But you are right that these stories aren't going to be part of the bigger thing. They never will be. But the thing is there's they're kind of like the underground of Star Wars. Right? When we got Shattered Empire, people are like, oh, it's just a comic. But it's but that's where you're first introduced to the messengers. And then the messengers showed up in Battlefront. And then the messengers showed up in the Aftermath series. And the messengers show up again in the Alphabet Squadron books. And anything that's really kind of in that era, now you're watching in Alphabet Squadron, you're learning all about Vanguard Squadron from afar. And we're getting ready to go into Squadrons, where Vanguard Squadron is going to be the
same
main
timeline?
front. And all of this, it's basically all of this stuff happens in the 1 year between Return of the Jedi and Battle of Jakku. So the Aftermath book, Shattered Empire,
right.
And all that. And so it's great because I'm watching Squadrons and I see Hera in the background and I see Rey Sloane and I'm like, man, Aftermath characters, and I just want to see it all and coming to live action. And it just feels like this subculture of things that you're really into and it's all connected. But let's be real, it's not going to be in a movie.
Well, let me ask you two quick questions.
A lot of people just aren't going to care.
Does this these two series of books, maybe this one more than the last one, change your opinion or understanding of the character of Hera? And second question, do you think any of the new characters introduced in this have any weight to the point where they can be vaulted and appear in other media?
Doesn't change my opinion of Hera. I think they've kind of aged her up a little bit. But I think that you never know. You never know with any of the other characters. I think right now probably the big one to maybe focus on would be the main character of the two books, Erica Quell. But yeah, but other than her, it's always going to be a surprise, right? Who they decide to be here's this person from the show. They just walked on screen in this video game or something, and you're like, oh shoot, it's all connected. But that's it. That's it for Resistance Report. Lacey, you want to take us into the pod race?
Yeah, so it's time for the Patreon pod race. So there are a lot of ways that you can support us. You can like this video, comment, subscribe, follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. And if you want more content and more of us all the time, because who doesn't? You can head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. All right. So to kick this off, I'm going to thank our highest tier, which is our generals, because They're awesome, and they support us so much. So thank you to Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Micah Harrison, Michael Gaines, Jetta Rosewater, Bethany, Russ, Kendall Gellner, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you so much for being part of the Resistance. So in this segment, we give generals a chance to be a part of the show and answer a Star Wars related question, and then we react to it. So this week we have General MELO in España, and his question was, if you heard blank was directing an upcoming Star Wars feature film, you would be over the moon excited, and why? So we asked him basically like, which director would you just be like so excited for? And so MELO, take it away.
Hello guys, and greetings from España. Well, that's a really good question. And I was thinking somebody like Denis Villeneuve or Ridley Scott, because I really like what they did with Blade Runner series. I know it's a little greedy and outside the usual Star Wars audience, but I think it will be great, especially after what The Mandalorian did. How it went a little bit more a more mature audience, you could say that. I will also be open to Wes Anderson. I love his movies. They're quirky, they're fantastic. And maybe this little known director, George Lucas. I don't think you guys heard of him. Well, that's all I have. Stay safe. You are Resistance.
Awesome job, MELO. Great answer. John, what did you think of MELO's answer?
Well, unexpected. I feel like usually MELO is usually like, I have this in mind and this is my answer. Like usually it's like, I love that person, I don't like that fit, or that. And this one he was like, well, they got this one, then we can go over to this one, and then we'll put this one into the first one of that version, and this person did the sequel to that version, let's get them in. And then he ends it with George Lucas at the end. So I don't know, MELO. You spun my head like a top, but I liked your explanation of your answers, though. You always have a good way of selling your point. So well done. But I'm really bummed I'm not going to get a chance to hang out. I know we were all looking really forward to Celebration, especially you coming home and doing all that. So I hope you're not too bummed. I hope we see you soon and later when you come back this way. But again, I hope you and your family are doing well over there in Spain. And I hope you guys are doing better than some of us are over here in terms of the pandemic stuff. So thanks again for being our longest tenured general and one of the best Star Wars fans I know. And again, great job with the Podrace.
James, he picked one of your faves. What do you think?
Yeah, no, this is fine. Roller coaster of MELO. I was like, this thing started and I was like, that's right. You know, yeah, Denny, let's get him. Oh man, this is going to be a good answer. And then literally like took a turn for like the exact opposite. The director that is usually, and I'm not here to say that he's bad or not a personal favorite.
We talked about this.
Good director.
When we talked about this in Will of the Force of like what director we wouldn't be excited for, I'm pretty sure Wes Anderson was your choice.
No, because I don't even think it's me. I think he's the go-to example of a director that should never do Star Wars because he's the exact opposite of a fit for the series.
Star Wars.
But I was like, okay, so he's like, yeah, a really good one, and then all of a sudden, just like the complete opposite. And then MELO. You did the joke. You did the joke that I don't like. The one where you're, a little known baseball player, ever heard of him, Babe Ruth, or whatever. Like, I'm like, come on. It's too easy. I see you, MELO. I see what you're doing. But thanks, man. Thanks for being a general. Thanks for doing the pod race.
Yeah, I think Blade Runner is a great movie, 2049, to like kind of the look of it, how it's shot, everything about it is just wonderful. And I think that anybody that sees that movie is like, yes, that would be an awesome Star Wars look. So that makes sense. But thank you so much for your answer. Thanks for being part of the Resistance. We really appreciate it. We love having you in the community. And now we're going to head to John to hear from other people in the community with Ask the Resistance.
Yeah, that's what we do here. We like to involve our community. And I think the director of photography for that 2049 was the director of photography for episode 9.
Solo.
I thought it was episode 9.
Bradford Young.
All right. Ask the Resistance time. Let's go.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
I have also been wondering what are midichlorians, Anakin. Thank you so much for asking, but we're not going to answer your question today. Lacey, this first one's going to you. It is by Din Jarlane. Not Din Djarin. Star Wars Ian. Star Wars Ian. He asks, what role do you think Jyn Erso would have had in the rebellion if she managed to survive the events of Rogue One? Lacey Gillerin.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I can't help but sometimes you always think, like, what would happen to this character if they didn't die, because it's always so sad when they die, especially Rogue One. I think they had to because it really pushed the story along, but I'd like to think that she would, stay with the rebellion and see it through. And I also like to think of the idea that, like, her and Leia would kind of butt heads at first because they're both very strong personalities, but then they'd, like, get into a scenario where they'd end up as best friends. Like, that's what I would like for Jyn.
Interesting.
I also think that obviously she would probably have a romance with Cassian at some point, because they were kind of like leading you there in Rogue One, but they were still on that friendship spot. But I could see that developing if they had more than one movie, this will they, won't they type of scenario. But yeah, that's my answer.
Nice. Good answer. All right, James, this one's going to you from Caitlin at Force Knowledge. Mace Windu, great Jedi, or one of the reasons Anakin turned?
Ooh.
Friend or foe? Man, it's a loaded question. I will fall back kind of on a thing that I don't even know if is I don't even know if it's a hot take anymore, or if it is now and it didn't used to be. But I still kind of believe that the Jedi for 1,000 generations were good people, and it wasn't something that was slowly declining. I think that the reason the Jedi fell was because they were infiltrated by Palpatine. They didn't know what was going on, but his existence as a Sith was the thing that really fell the Jedi, unless they want to tell another story. And so to me, I think that it's undeniable that Mace Windu and all the Jedi were, part of the reason that Anakin fell. But I do think that if not for the trickery and the menace that Palpatine was, he's a great Jedi. There's a reason he is on the council and he's one of the leaders at the time. So yeah, I say great Jedi, but still undeniably one of the reasons Anakin turned.
Yeah, fair. Good answer.
So kind of both, but in a real way, not a fake out way.
Right on. All right. Thank you, Caitlin, for that. Last one here. Semperfi Danny asked, is there any time period or character story arc during any part of the Skywalker saga timeline that you would like to see explained or explored? And if so, what is it and in what format? Live action, Disney Plus, movie, animated, book, comic? I am cheating a little bit here, but it touches this timeline. Palpatine, early Palpatine. I think that would be an amazing Disney Plus series, seeing him killing Plagueis and kind of planting the seeds that we see starting to fester and grow in the Phantom Menace. I think you get a dynamic actor who can pull off a similarity to a young Ian McDiarmid. I know a lot of people have said to get Tom Hiddleston to do it. I'm
like
sure
Matt
there's
Smith?
other. I would rather get somebody. Stop it right now. I'd rather get Terry Crews would be good. I'd rather get someone unknown, so then you can like I always say with Star Wars,
Matt
you look at that face and then who? You look at that face and then you say that's young Palpatine. So I would love to see a miniseries, 8 episodes, 10 episodes of the rise of Palpatine. I think that'd be compelling, and we get a little canon live action Plagueis in the mix, so that'd be pretty cool. Thanks for the question there, Danny.
I'm still in for Terry, but another Cruise, Tom Cruise
would be a
Or this
great
guy
think is a
named
young
Matt Smith.
Palpatine. Yeah. Or this.
Yeah. Someone, you just need someone when you look at his face, you're like,
Or what
"That's
about
Palpatine."
Enda? And
Charlie
end the show,
Theron.
because that's what we're gonna do here.
Charlize Theron.
Jeez. James, you're a monster. All right, guys.
I was gonna say, did you see Monster? She can
That was a real long
transform.
shot.
That's
an actress.
Did she have a movie called Long Shot?
She does with Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Jeez.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. That is the end of the show. If you do want to send in your questions, tweet us at RBATSWNN. We're always putting up a tweet asking for them, or you can just at any time use the hashtag AskTheResistance or email us, resistancebroadcast@gmail.com. Thank you to everyone who is watching and listening, being a part of the Resistance. Make sure you are subscribed to us on Apple Podcasts. Still got Rate the Resistance going until Friday. So make sure you get your entries in if you want to win the Make Solo 2 Happen red shirt, which you can't buy anymore at teespring.com/store/resistance broadcast, where our other gear is. But SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, subscribe, and share the show with your friends, because that is how we grow. We really appreciate that very much. Make sure you go to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for all of your Star Wars news and all that other good stuff, including the written review by Kyle Larson about Alphabet Squadron. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing and editing over at StarWarsNewsNet.com. James?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra
Lacey?
Trunks.
People can find me doing a deep dive investigation of what happened to Matt Smith in The Rise of Skywalker on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
Excellent. And the reason why this ending is so short is because we have to get on a call with our admirals and general officers from Patreon right now. So the party's about to begin over there. If you're not one of those, sign up. If not, we'll see you on Thursday with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.